Yes, good morning and welcome back to the Football Tribe UG channel. Robert Kesakos is your usual suspect once again. It's a beautiful Monday morning, bright and sunny out there. I hope you guys are doing well. I hope you had a wonderful weekend. A lot of action there happening right from the German Bundesliga, where where Xabi Alonso bid farewell to the Bayer Leverkusen fans as they had their last home game with him as manager, and then him, climbing to the stands to, wave goodbye to the passionate Bayer Leverkusen fans, very passionate. I'm sure some of them are really, really sad to see him go, but it is what it is. And then the El Clasico, Barcelona beating Real Madrid for the fourth time this season. At that, Man United losing, Tottenham Hotspur with their 20th loss of the season. Arsenal bouncing back from a two-goal deficit at halftime to level it 2-2. So plenty of things did happen in the weekend, and there's a lot for us to discuss. So allow me test our audios like the norm oftentimes is or has become, so that we can get the conversation going. But it's good to have you back, and it's good to be back on this beautiful Monday morning. It's good to be back. So kindly indulge me as I wait for the rest of you to join the broadcast, so that we can get today's discussion going. Yeah, but as we wait to get the discussion going, I want to send my shout outs to our usual suspects, Space Explorers, uh, J-Day, and all the others that have been joining us. Do the giveaway of a house. This is Rejan's. Is that like Rejan? Rejan is playing. Rejan is playing. He's saying, do the giveaway of a house. You want me to give away a house? Is that what you're saying? Please let me know if that's what you mean. And kindly like the broadcast, and also let me know where you're joining us from this beautiful morning. It's about 10:30 a.m. Back in Kampala, Uganda, where we're coming to you live from on the Football Tribe UG channel. So thank you for joining us, and good morning to you, Rajan. I want to understand your question better. Is it a question you're saying, do the giveaway of a house? Do you want me to give away a house? So good morning once again, and if you're just joining us, welcome back to the Football Tribe UG channel. If you're new here, kindly consider subscribing to the channel. If you're a regular, please like the broadcast and put your comments down in the comment section. Let's exchange, let's share greetings, and let me know where you're joining us from, and let's have an engagement. Guys, I can see we're about 22 people on the broadcast. How is your morning? Where are you joining us from? What are you up to this beautiful Monday morning? Let me know down in the comment section. And if Space Explorers, you're one of those, yesterday you left prematurely before I could answer your question, I would be really, really eager to entertain your question about what you asked yesterday about how to grow a YouTube channel. And that's something we didn't get to speak about, but I thought I'll give you my tips, although by the end of our broadcast, you had left the broadcast. So you had left the channel. So it was unfortunate for that. But I usually tend to answer some of those questions at the very end of the broadcast. But thank you for joining us. For all of those that are joining us, please like the broadcast before we dive into today's discussion, which is going to be quite expansive. For the sports fans, please let me know what sport discipline you do really enjoy, what football club is of interest to you, which one do you follow ardently, which one do you love, which one do you support, and that kind of thing. So let's keep the engagement going. But why do we even start it all? Because, like I said, there's plenty to talk about. Where do we even start? Do we start in Germany? Do we start in the UK? Do we start in Spain? I mean, there's just too much to talk about. There's just too much to talk about. But anyways, let's start our conversation in German. Like I said, Xabi Alonso over the weekend bid farewell to the Bayer Leverkusen fans. Unfortunately, they did lose that game by 4 goals to 2. I think that was against Borussia Dortmund on Saturday. It was his last home fixture in front of the Bayer Leverkusen fans after a period of 3 years, having joined them back in October 2022 when he left a Real Sociedad B team to come and join them as head coach. I think they had sacked Gerard Simon, something like that, to replace him, and they were second on the Bundesliga tables. They were second from bottom on the Bundesliga table, took them up to 6th place, and the following season won them the German Bundesliga as well as the DFB Pokal. So it was a bittersweet goodbye at their own. That was on Sunday as they lost to Borussia Dortmund by 4 goals to 2 on the day at the Bayer Arena. But yes, he did announce last week that he will be leaving the club at the end of the season, and we all know he will be joining Real Madrid unless anything changes. So as their new head coach. Speaking of Real Madrid, they did lose their 4th El Clasico of the season, losing 4-3 to Real Madrid. Losing 4-3 to Barcelona, with Kylian Mbappe scoring the hat-trick in that one. A game that did have very many wanting decisions as far as officiation goes. You did have a handball by Tchouaméni that was quite questionable. Although the referee, in the context of what he saw, he decided not to give it. And when you look at the context of the game, you can't really blame him that much. And then you had about 3 goals cancelled out, offsides, and then a handball in Fermin Lopez's goal that would have made it 5-3 on the night. That's for the victory for Barcelona and that kind of thing. So, but goes, like I said, Mbappe giving Real Madrid the early 2-0 lead within just an hour of the game upon the start, and then you had Eric Garcia score to pull one back, and then Lamine Yamal scoring the equalizer. Then Rafinha went on to score a brace, and I mean, it was that kind of game. Very, very beautiful game, I must say. But again, of course, Rafinha gets to steal the headlines. But as Barcelona won that El Clasico to send themselves 7 points clear of the summit of the Spanish La Liga with 3 games left to play, that means Barcelona need only 1 victory to be crowned the Spanish La Liga champions. So we will leave that at that as well. So, but beautiful game of football for those of you that were able to catch it on Super Sunday. Speaking incredible results still over the weekend, I must mention this because Como did beat up against Cagliari by 3-1 over the weekend. I think they had about 6, one of the teams that have had about 6 wins in the row in the Italian Serie A. Very, very incredible there. Francesco Fabregas and in managing that Como side that are 10th on the Serie A table after 36 games with 2 games left to play with 48 points. I do not think they will finish anything above 10th because there's about an 11-point disparity between them in 10th place and Fiorentina, who are 9th on that league table. But very beautiful game of football. And then yesterday, of course, we did okay. The reason as why we're speaking about Como is because Bayer Leverkusen want Francesco Fabregas as their next manager, and they are trying to court him to join Bayer Leverkusen. And then still, Inter Milan did win their game over the weekend to put more pressure on Napoli. There, remember, the two, yes, Inter Milan had came into that fixture and beat up against Torino by 2-0, while Napoli in the late kickoff were forced into a 2-2 draw by Genoa. So that means with about 2 games left to play, Napoli are on the summit of the Scudetto or the Italian Serie A with just a point. Because remember, there's always been a 3 point gap between the two sides. So Inter Milan beat up against Torino and closed that gap, and they were level on points before Napoli played. So Napoli then later played, and they were forced in a 2-all draw, which leaves them now with just a point, above Inter Milan. Of course, very, very disturbing result there for Napoli. Lukaku being among the goal scorers for Napoli, as well as a Raspadori in that game. But it will be a very concerning result. I think it does pile more pressure on that Napoli side in trying to win the Scudetto, having won it last season, but won. For those of you that do remember the incidents or this, the resurgence of Victor Osimhen helping them to win that title. Of course, Kivicha Kvaratskhelia was still in that same side and that kind of thing. But we'll wait to see if Inter Milan can defend the Scudetto, having won it last season under the charges of Simone Inzaghi, who are also in the finals of this year's UEFA Champions League, waiting to play PSG on May 31st at the Allianz Arena. Anyways, moving forward, let's head to the Premier League, where we did have so many, beautiful results over the weekend. Chelsea losing by 2-0. Very a red card there for Nicholas Jackson. We discussed that yesterday at length, and I did give my thoughts and my views, my opinions about that, which I felt was really harsh. We've seen so many incidences of that nature where players have really walked away with it. They've not even gotten so much as a yellow card, and yet yesterday Nicholas Jackson had been given a yellow card. We did see an incident of I think it was Virgil van Dijk against Tottenham. In a game against Tottenham, we did see a one by, was it Dejan Kulusevski against Romeo Lavia earlier on in the season. I mean, for the last 1-2 seasons, we've had so many contentious decisions of that nature involving elbow fouls that did not culminate into red cards, that for which the video assistant referees did not call, referees to the monitor to review those decisions. And yet yesterday we did have one in which the referees called to the monitor to review the decision and ends up changing his caution from a yellow card to a red card, which was a straight send-off, and that kind of thing. And Enzo Maresca, speaking in the post-match press conference, did say that it seemed that the fans or the noise of the fans in the stadium determined what was a foul and what was not. Of course, when a team is playing at home, it has that advantage. They sort of, the fans, okay, not the fans, but they sort of have that influence of the referee that for every foul against their player, you're going to have a bit of noise from the fans, and usually maybe that psychologically sort of impacts on how the referee officiates the game, on what kind of decisions he makes there. We've seen shout-outs that ended up with referees giving fouls when linesmen had ignored them, and that kind of thing. So that's bound to happen for as long as you're playing from home. But again, it's not to say that for me, and this is not to say that the referee should have done any better, but because he had given his caution, he had been close to the incident, he had seen the incident happen in real time, and that kind of thing. But VAR's intervention to ask for a red card, I understand wanting to implement the rules to the letter of the law, but also I think the inconsistency in these decisions is what really causes us to be here every now and again to discuss things and sort of be the kind of people who discuss more referees' decisions than the football itself on the pitch and that kind of thing. So we'll leave that at that. Then also, of course, like I said, Newcastle beating up against Chelsea by 2-0. Then we had an incident involving Evangelos Marinakis, the owner of Olympiacos, as well as Nottingham Forest. They walk onto the turf in the aftermath of a 2-all draw between Nottingham Forest and Leicester City. And he seemed to be a bit furious. I do not know whether it was about how the game went and that kind of thing, but they did put out a statement to clarify on what had happened. And initial reports had had questions to do. Of course, everybody thought that, Evangelos Marinakis was scolding his manager in Nuno Espirito Santo, was done a very tremendous job at the club, that is at Nottingham Forest, and that is without question. But then also, of course, it's not pretty to see, it's not pretty to watch. It's not good to watch on the eyes, both for the fans, both for whoever minds football. But also, you do get concerned that, sort of, you do understand, sorry, where he was coming from. For me personally, I sort of understand. I mean, football is pretty much like any other sport, a game of passion. You sort of, your affection to this game gets you emotional, and you're bound to do certain things, bound to react a certain way. I remember again yesterday, Mikel Arteta speaking in his post-match press conference and said the mistakes we did or things we did in the first half, and I wanted to kill myself. And then he goes on to apologize that sorry for the language that I've used. I mean, he wouldn't have wanted to use the word kill in the press conference. I mean, we all know that's, a caution for managers to avoid saying, but it happened in the moment and they apologized for it. So this side, you have a team owner sort of expressing his frustration, maybe on the day for the result, because they are trying to finish within the top 5. And there's a lot at stake. There's a lot at stake for the team. And when they drop 2 points, on a day at home, it's going to get emotional. People are going to feel disappointed in the result, maybe less in the performance of their own players, but in the final result. Maybe they feel they should have done more. And this is the statement that they sort of put out in the aftermath of that particular incident. And this was by Evangelos Marinakis. I said, today is a day for celebration because after 30 years, Nottingham Forest is now guaranteed to be competing on the European stage once again. A promise I made to our supporters when we achieved a promotion. With 2 more games to go in the Premier League, we must keep believing and keep dreaming right to the final kick in the final game. We are extremely proud and close to Nuno and the team, and we must all celebrate the historic achievement of the season. Everybody, coaching staff, players, and supporters, including myself, where we were frustrated around the injury of Taiwo. I think he's talking about Taiwo Awoni. And the medical staff's misjudgment on Taiwo's ability to continue the game. This is a natural, this is a demonstration of the passion we feel for our club. Let's all be grateful, passionate, and keep dreaming on. So, I mean, again, this speaks to what I've just said. It's the emotions, it's the passion, that drives us, the passion that they feel to demonstrate their love for the club, and which causes them to, do certain things. And he wasn't to point really fingers as much, although he does highlight that maybe the doctors got it wrong. And then while the Nuno Espirito Santo was speaking in the aftermath of the game, he did defend his boss. He said it was a misunderstanding between the coaching. It was a misunderstanding between the coaching and medical department, and we were both frustrated. It is because of the owner's passion that we are growing as a club. He pushes us, he wants us to do better. And then if it was the other way around, maybe 1 month ago, he would say, okay, we have the job done, that's normal. His desire and passion is to be a big club. Honestly, as a club, we owe a lot to the Marinakis family. So that was Nuno Espirito Santo speaking in the aftermath of that sort of what appeared to be, I wouldn't want to qualify it, but him expressing his frustration to the manager, and like they explained, it had to do more with Taiwo Awoni and his ability to continue in the match and that kind of thing. So it finished in a 2-2 draw there. Chris Wood being one of the goal scorers and Morgan Gibbs White for Nottingham Forest, while I think it was Connor Cody on target for Leicester City for one of their goals, and Buenanote, yes, the goal scorers in that particular fixture. So that result frustrating itself for Nottingham Forest, I'm pretty sure. Of course, still on Saturday, we had the frustrating goalless draw between Man City and Southampton. That was there. Then we went on to Super Sunday still. Manchester United losing by 2-0. Gerard Bowen being one of the goal scorers in that defeat for Man United, as well as Thomas Tuchel. 17 losses for this of the Premier League this season, and that's as ugly as it gets for Manchester United. That's as ugly as it comes for a team like Manchester United. I mean, I don't want to say I feel for Manchester United, but clearly there's of course, the end of the season table look does not lie in terms of what the overall performance has been across the season. But when you compare and contrast the Manchester United that plays and behaves in the UEFA Europa League at how they've been behaving across the entire season, you beg the question whether it is the same Manchester United that plays, in the Premier League. Now, of course, the opponents are oftentimes different and from different leagues, but that's as ugly as it gets. 17 losses for Manchester United this season. I mean, how do you even explain that? How do you even explain that? Under normal circumstances, that's the kind of results that get managers sacked. That's the kind of results that get managers sacked. Now, of course, we know they've already sacked one in Erik ten Hag, but have they become a better team ever since sacking Erik ten Hag? Certainly, I do not think so. In any case, they've become worse. They become worse because I think if they had retained Erik ten Hag, maybe they wouldn't be as low as 17 on that. Sorry, they wouldn't be as low as 16 on that Premier League table with 39 points. Now, and they could as well as finish as 17 because, I mean, look, they're only a point above Tottenham Hotspurs. And I said this before that had it been a different season where by the final day of the Premier League, we still had not yet determined what teams had been relegated, United could as well be in that conversation. And I remember tweeting, I think this was early on, either around January or February, that Man United need at least 11 points to avoid relegation. And for me, the measure at the time was that they needed 11 points to make it 40 points at least and avoid relegation. Ever since then, they failed to reach 40 points. They are 39, and that's concerning. That's really concerning for a team the stature of Manchester United. So they did collapse. They have collapsed. They've been, for lack of a better word, abysmal this season, really. They've not performed as far as the Premier League is concerned. They've struggled for consistency. We've seen flashes of brilliancy. We've seen them versus Arsenal in that 1-0 goal. We've seen them in a 2-0 goal against Liverpool and wondered, is this when they wake up and come back? But at the end of the day, it just never materializes. They switch off in the next game against Wolves, against West Ham, and those are the games they've been losing all season. I'm sure when you look at their tally against the big six, yes, they recorded losses, including 3-0, I think, against Liverpool, losing to Arsenal and that kind of thing. But overall, you look at their performances as not as bad versus those big teams. And yet, here we are. They are 16th on the Premier League table. And I know Manchester United fans and Tottenham Hotspurs fans are desperate because of the rivalry that does exist between them and Arsenal, are desperate to have the discussion of who has had a better season, because either of them is going to go ahead and win the UEFA Europa League and then end up in the UEFA Champions League. By the virtue of the fact that you're finishing 16th or 17th of the Premier League table, of course you shouldn't be in the UEFA Champions League, but because you win the Europa League, then you get there. It's more like going through the window as your point of entry rather than walking through the door. But that's a debate for another day. But I mean, honestly speaking, how do you, as a Manchester United fan or a Tottenham Hotspur fan, uh, sit down objectively, putting your prejudices aside, sit down and convince yourself that either of those teams have had a better season than Arsenal. Now, I do understand, of course, the goal or the objective for every team at the start of the season is to win a piece of silverware, however big or small it may be, whether it's the Carabao Cup, the FA Cup, the Premier League, the UEFA Champions League, the UEFA Europa League, the UEFA Conference League, or any other title that you may be competing in. Hell, let it be the Community Shield at the start of the season, which is increasingly looking like will be between Liverpool versus Crystal Palace or Man City, either of who wins the FA Cup on May 17th. That's next weekend. But how do you convince yourself comfortably that you've had a better season when you're finishing, when you borderline that relegation? I do not get it. I certainly don't. I certainly don't. Anyways, that's for that. Then yesterday, we also did witness a 2-2 draw between Liverpool and Arsenal. Liverpool going in a 2-goal lead. Of course, Arsenal sleeping on the job on both occasions. Switching off, I thought in the second goal, William Saliba could have done better to track Luis Diaz before he went on to score. I thought in the first goal, William Saliba and Ben White could have been more alert to Cody Gakpo as movement, because Liverpool went for a quick throw in and Robertson floats in that cross in quite similar fashion like we saw in 2019 when Alexander Trent Arnold played the quick corner for Divock Origi as Liverpool beat up against Barcelona 4-0 at Anfield and that kind of thing. So Arsenal were not alive to that, and that's what I think Mikel Arteta was speaking about in his post-match press conference about his frustration and disappointment, his bitterness, saying that I felt like killing myself because they made mistakes that he thought should have been avoided, especially for that first goal. And then he goes on, of course, Arsenal mount a second half comeback through Gabriel Martinelli and Mikel Merino to restore parity, to draw it 2-2. Now, it was quite commendable, the effort that Arsenal put in, the way they dominated that game for me, especially on the back of a very tiring or psychologically and energetically consuming game that they did play on Wednesday against PSG. Never mind that they eventually got knocked out of the UEFA Champions League. So on the back of that, and also go to Anfield and put up that kind of performance was really, really commendable. I hope they can put all that energy back together when they meet Newcastle next weekend, because that is going to be an even more important game for them. Should be a must win for Arsenal. There's no room to falter. But then again, the talking points. Let's start with Alexander Trent Arnold. Alexander Trent Arnold was booed by a section of Liverpool fans as he came on as a substitute for Conor Cody in that second half. And like we've spoken before about Liverpool fans, and I said they are toxic. And now, not all of them, but at least many of them have been been toxic as far as they are expressing their feelings to Alexander Trent Arnold are concerned. And Michael Owen was speaking about that particular incident and says nobody understands that feeling more than anybody, because he was booed by his own fans when he returned to Liverpool, when he joined Newcastle, when he joined Manchester United, and that kind of thing. Now, he said he remembers being in a flood of tears and knows practically what Alexander Arnold will be in for it. But I'm sure Trent Alexander-Arnold's minders must have warned him about this kind of thing or that kind of reception, but I didn't think that it was deserving of him. Of course, some cheered him on, some clapped for him, and they were really happy for him to see him walk on, but others booed him. Now, let's assess Alexander Trent Arnold in just a second. It's more like when you start a business, and let's say your objective is to grow your branch and maybe have sales of, let's say, $1 million a year. When you achieve that, the following year, you want to go to 1.5 or $2 million a year. That's the nature of success. That the more you win, the more you want more. And for Alexander Trent Arnold, in this case, his goal, his objective was to play for Liverpool. And he has played for Liverpool. He's been at Liverpool for 20 years. Of course, nobody knew him as a 6-year-old in the Liverpool Academy, but that's where the journey starts for him as a youngster. That's the dream. That's where it starts. whether you knew him or didn't know about him, that's where the journey starts for him. And he progressed until he reached into the, main team, senior team, and he's played his socks off. He's won the UEFA Champions League, 2 Premier League titles, an FA Cup, 2 Carabao Cups, a UEFA Super Cup, a FIFA Club World Cup, a Community Shield. He's won it all. So then that means he then sets himself the next goal to achieve. Now, unfortunately, whatever the next goal is to be achieved, is he wants to do it from away, elsewhere. He wants to challenge himself that I have cracked it here. Can I do it elsewhere? And he's chosen Real Madrid. And as of this morning, there's speculation that Real Madrid want to pay Liverpool £1 million so that they can let Alexander Trent Arnold out of his current contract, before the start of the FIFA Club World Cup. Remember, usually these contracts expire on 30th of June in the summer. Now, because the FIFA Club World Cup starts after the first week of June, they want him to be able to represent Real Madrid, and that means Liverpool letting him out of his contract early on than it should be tentatively be getting done. So that's that. That's why, Yemi Kalaga was speaking yesterday, maybe out of banter, maybe genuinely, saying that he would want Real Madrid to pay £10 million. But of course, we all know Real Madrid can't be paying Liverpool £10 million for a player that is as good as done with. They would rather wait it out, But that notwithstanding, the speculation is that they would want to pay Liverpool £1 million for them to let him out of his contract early. So, but I thought the reception that they gave him was not really deserving of a player of his stature, of his historical contribution to that club. And I wish we did have Liverpool fans on here to let me know. I do know that Mr. Okoyo Amlin, who is oftentimes a usual suspect on the channel, I wish he was here. He would have let us know about his personal feelings for Alexander Trent Arnold, because I do know for a fact that he's a Liverpool fan, and he would have given us his own sort of expression or feelings about that. But we'll leave it at that on the day. Then, still speaking matters of that game, Martin Odegaard, where's that all been all season? Because him hitting that attempt that sort of troubles Alson Ramsey-Baker, keeping it to the crossbar before it bounces back to fall to Mikel Merino to score in an empty net. Where has that attempt, that effort been all season? We've been asking Martin Odegaard to do that all season, and he wasn't doing it. We saw it against PSG when he forced Gianluigi Donnarumma into a save in the 7th minute. Where's that Martin Odegaard been? We've always been shouting, shoot, like you're in front of goal, go for it. Have the confidence in you that you can strike that ball and hit the target. And he's not been really coming good on that. But it is what it is. Of course, Thomas Partey takes as much blame on failing to take his own chances when it comes to shooting from distance. But whether that's something that is constantly drilled out of the mind by the manager, we'll never know. But I thought those two players ought to take more effort, especially from out of goal or from distance, aiming at goal. So, and then we had the unfortunate comment of Peter Schmeichel taking a dig at Mikel Arteta, calling him a control freak and that kind of thing. Now, he did say that when you look at a manager like Arne Slot, he's coached his team, he's given them instructions, and onto the pitch they do work. I can see Abdul Rahim. Abdul Rahim says, "Hi everybody, how are you all doing? Blessing, greetings and respect." And then he puts a flag. Unfortunately, I'm not sure where that flag is from. Is that an Indian flag or a Pakistani flag? Kindly let me know. Abdul Rahim. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Liverpool 2 versus Arsenal 2, first half and second half. First half for Liverpool and second half. Oh, it's the Nigerian flag. Oh, okay, that's beautiful. So you're from Nigeria. You say first half Liverpool, second half Arsenal, and then you say anyway. Thanks. So, okay. Thank you, Abdul, for joining us. Abdul Rahim, for joining us from Nigeria. How is Nigeria? Are you from Lagos? Are you from what's the city? Abuja. Anyways, from wherever it is that you're joining us from, you give your comments. You're saying Liverpool won the first half. Of course, by the scoreline, Liverpool won the first half, and by the scoreline, Arsenal sort of won the second half, and that's how it cancelled itself out. But when you look at the overall play in terms of how the game went, I thought Arsenal were more dominant because both Liverpool goals did come against the run of play in itself, and then when Arsenal conceded that first goal, they sort of want to push immediately for an equalizer on the other side because of the energy that they did have in that moment, and then concede possession, and because I think there was a time gap of about 87 seconds. That's about a minute and a half between the first goal and the second goal for Liverpool. So for me, the goals for Liverpool did come against the run of play, and I did think that in both goals, Arsenal could have done better to be alive to the situation. But overall, I thought Arsenal were the more dominant side on the day. When you look at both the first half and the second half, but what we did also see is that it was basically a replica of what we saw of Arsenal versus PSG in France. Arsenal not being clinical with their chances, and then Liverpool showing them how to be clinical with the opportunities. And they did just that. Of course, Liverpool had their other misses in the same game. That goes without saying. But they were more clinical than Arsenal. That's what they showed Arsenal in the first half. And it's what we've been saying literally all season. And that's why Arsenal are into the market for a striker. And I have a strong feeling that it will be either of Victor Gyökeres or Benjamin Sesko that will be Arsenal striker come next season. Never mind that their primary target remains Alexander Isak. Now, earlier on in this season, I think around January, there was an Arsenal journalist who works with, I think, The Athletic or Footballtribeug London, one of the two. Anyways, he's called Chris Weekly. He did come out to reveal that Newcastle and Alexander Isak have a gentleman's agreement that should Newcastle fail to qualify for the UEFA Champions League, then they can let him leave for 100 million euros. Now, gentleman's agreements can always be broken. We've seen clubs break plenty of those, while we've seen others honor some of those. We've seen Bayer Leverkusen honor their gentleman's agreement with Xabi Alonso that should a suitable offer come for him or an acceptable offer come for him, they should let him leave. We've seen a similar situation with Matthias Cunha at Wolves. They will be letting him go this summer because he stayed in January and signed a new contract to help them fight relegation with based on a gentleman's agreement that when the season ends and suitable offer comes for him or an acceptable offer comes for him, then they should let him leave for about £62.5 million or 64 thereabout. So those kinds of agreements are there. So you do expect that Arsenal would be praying that Newcastle do not qualify for the UEFA Champions League, and if such an agreement does exist between Newcastle and Alexander Isak, then they could leverage on that to buy the player out of Newcastle. Nonetheless, it is increasingly looking likely that Newcastle will be next season in UEFA Champions League, and with that, it doesn't mean that the player can't leave. The player can still leave, but it makes the deal more expensive because remember he still has 3 years left to his contract and is on very high wages, which is also a bit of a concern for Arsenal. A similar situation with what is happening with Nico Williams. His transfer fee is very affordable for a player of his standards and his age profile, but his wages are very, very high. And remember, Arsenal are trying to control their wage bill. They are trying to control their wage bill. So we'll see how that transpires. So, for example, you're talking about a player who is about what? About anywhere between 200,000 and 250,000 pounds on wages weekly at Newcastle. Their best player, paid player, and in fact, they want to renew his contract with an improved offer in terms of salary. So, should Newcastle qualify for the UEFA Champions League and is on good wages and has 3 years left to his contract, that means Newcastle are not eager to sell. Not that they want to even sell him anyway, but money speaks. If a club comes with a suitable offer, then they can't listen to those offers because they also have an issue with the financial fair play rules, which sort of limits their spending. But like I keep saying, Alexander Isak is the crown jewel of that Newcastle team in that project, in addition to the likes of Bruno Guimaraes, Steven Botman, Dan Mann, Nick Pope, those kinds of players, Anthony Gordon, who is, by the way, also has been linked with a potential move to Arsenal and that kind of thing. So we wait to see. So Arsenal lacked that sharpness in goal, that efficiency, and Liverpool had that on the edge, and that's how it finished by 2-2. But overall, I thought Arsenal were the better team on the day in terms of play. Then we had Andy Robertson get away with a big foul. He sort of basically choked Bukayo Saka and tagged him to the floor. The linesman was close by there, didn't wait for a foul. So much in importance of Bukayo Saka, and he was ignored. Then Ibrahim Konate, when Liverpool scored that third goal, the way he dragged Miles Lewis Kelly to the floor. Okay, it's called for a foul, but no booking whatsoever. A few questionable decisions there for Andrew Taylor, but we will leave it at that. Then let's speak about Peter Schmeichel. So again, this is all about Peter Schmeichel. That's where the conversation emanated from up to where it ended up. But you are saying that Mikel Arteta is a control freak. Now, whether that's what he wants to believe or not, I have no issue, no quarrel whatsoever with Mikel Arteta coaching this team while he's in the technical area. So that's why they put it there for managers to come on and give instructions and that kind of thing and watch their team play. Now, for a manager that said he was disappointed with the way they handled themselves in the first half, especially in the situations of the 2 goals, he wanted to kill himself. Now, the assumption for people like Peter Schmeichel is that Mikel Arteta is on that touchline issuing out new instructions to his players, and they floated this idea of, oh, you're confusing the players, you've already coached them, and that kind of nonsense. Bull load of crap. Why? For all the times I've had players speak about the coach or the manager in Mikel Arteta, Bukayo Saka, Granit Xhaka, Jorginho, and I remember the conversation by Granit Xhaka saying, for all the managers he's not had one like Mikel Arteta, about his tactical insights, about how deep he goes, and the kind of instructions he gives you, and how he paints for you the perfect picture. And often players have always said this, that the kind of picture that he paints for them before he came in their tactical setup is usually what they do experience on the pitch. And oftentimes, someone went on to acknowledge that sometimes they've fallen short of implementing the manager's strategy or doing what he told them to do, but when they experience situations that he told them they would experience in a game. Now, Peter Schmeichel assumes that Mikel Arteta is on that touchline, issuing new instructions, are trying to sort of dictate every minute of play, every pass, and that kind of thing. Maybe he's trying to dictate it because playing a game of football is like going to war. Once that first bullet goes off, every plan you had sort of goes out of the window. You get, because now a bullet has gone off. So because once that bullet goes off, who has it killed in the first place? You could have killed your general. So you have a goal that has gone in on the other side. Maybe that wasn't part of the plan that they were scoring fast. So it may alter your plans. But also, the manager could be re-emphasizing to the players what he told them prior to the game. This is what I told you, be here in this moment. So he's constantly reminding his players about the tactical setup, about and remember, even the opponents also change their game tactically to adapt to you or to try and comfort whatever strategy you've got to deploy. In some cases, we've seen a change of systems or even a change of approach to a game. Let's say a team came to be on the front foot, but they realize they're not having any position and they're being dominated, then they need to play with a low block. So you with your strategy, you also have to adapt. How do you then move to break that low block? So I do not think entirely it's about new instructions and confusing the players like he wants everyone to assume. I feel that's bogus. If he has ever managed any team at a senior level, let us know how he did things differently, which I certainly do not think so. But that's not the point. The point is that for me, I get the feeling that he is always trying to remind his players of his own instructions. How many times does a player get treatment, or they are celebrating a goal, whether it's the opponent or an Arsenal goal? Does Mikel Arteta call his captain to, give him instructions about how tactically they should be, tweaking things, or how he needs to remind certain players of what positions they need to occupy in what phases of the game, and that kind of thing? That's how I see it. Look at managers like Diego Simeone. Now, of course, sometimes he does it on his bench, but oftentimes he's in that technical area. I've seen him over the years trying to grill his team, drive it, sort of motivate them, encourage them, give them instructions. I've seen it with Simone Inzaghi since his days at Lazio, and then at Inter Milan, always giving his players instructions and trying to drill them into the game. Look at that semi-final between Barcelona and Inter Milan over 2 legs, where Simone Inzaghi is always shouting, screaming at his players to sort of make sure that they do not make blunders, to make sure that they stick to plan, to make sure that they adapt to the game, to the substitutions that the opponent makes that could sort of shift in the way they've been approaching the game. So for me, that's not an issue. We've seen managers do it. We've seen Antonio Conte do it, always on the touchline, issuing out instructions. We've seen it from Pep Guardiola, of course, not as often as Arteta, but he also does it. Watch his team and shout at his players. So I mean, it's bound to happen. That's his nature. That's his style. That's the way he conducts himself. Now, again, I saw another argument yesterday that Mikel Arteta often spends more time outside his technical area, and somebody was saying referees, the fourth officials fear him. They can't tell him to drift back. I mean, this is the thing. The thing about the passion of this sport is that you're driven out of the bounds of the rules. Oftentimes, he's walked out of that technical area. But he's not the only manager that's done that. He's not the only manager. We've seen Jose Mourinho do that thousands of times. But he also reminds himself to retire, to keep himself in check as much as he can. So for me, that's not an issue. Anyways, before we wrap this up, let's talk a bit of transfer gossip in as far as your teams are concerned, because in Germany, Bayern Munich are saying they're not improving their offer for 29-year-old left winger in Leroy Sané. Yes, they want him to stay at the club, but they are not looking to improve whatever wages they are offering him in his current contract. Then Thomas Muller, we all know they say they're not giving him a new contract, and should I think their former manager, Inup Henkos, who did win for them he did win for them, I think, yes, a title. That's the UEFA Champions League. Of course, he won them so many German Bundesliga titles, but he won them the 2013 UEFA Champions League title as they beat up against Bayern Munich by 2-2, as they beat up against Borussia Dortmund by 2-1 in 2013. He did say that he maybe needs to retire and be given a more senior role at the club, and we'll wait to see how that spans out. Then Napoli trying to sign Kevin De Bruyne from Manchester City. He's going to be a free agent in the summer. 33-year-old Belgian international still wants to play in Europe, so Napoli are really trying to push for that. And then Bayer Leverkusen bosses say that there is a chance that a 20-year-old forward or attacking midfielder in foreign Vats has a chance. There's a chance that he could remain at Bayer Leverkusen, although I get the feeling that those chances are quite very minimal, unless he wants to do what's his name, the former Dortmund captain that chose to stay, even in the wake of interest from the likes of Real Madrid, the likes of Bayern Munich. He was a left-footed player. I'm forgetting his name. If anybody does remember his name, kindly drop it down for me in the comment section. But he refused to join Bayern Munich and chose to stay at Borussia Dortmund throughout his career. Yes, it was Marco Reus. Yeah, unless Foreign Vats wants to pull a Marco Reus or a Steven Gerrard that he did at Liverpool and that kind of thing. But That's amid strong interest from Bayern Munich as well as Man City among the key teams that are tracking foreign bats. And who knows, when Xabi Alonso goes to Real Madrid, maybe he could motivate them into signing foreign bats. Then Arsenal defender Jakub Kiwior, 25-year-old Polish international, is being monitored by Napoli as well as Juventus and Inter Milan, who want to sign him. I mean, we've already spoken about that he's of interest to many Italian clubs, and there is that for him to think about. But let's wait and see what Arsenal do in the summer. And then former Everton and Burnley manager Sean Dyche is among the candidates for taking over at Leicester City. Of course, that means Ruud van Nistelrooy will be shown the exit, or they are considering that. Then Brazilian midfielder, this is according to Twitch, that's Douglas Luiz, formerly at Aston Villa, says he does miss being at Aston Villa, misses regular first team football. We know he's been more a bench squad player than a starter at Juventus. Behind the pecking order for the likes of McKennie and that kind of thing. So he's looking to get more regular football. That's for the 27-year-old. He was one of those players that I thought Arsenal should have signed in terms of a holding midfielder. But we'll wait to see what the future holds for him. And then that's the key gossip. That's the key gossip for as far as transfers are concerned. Anyways, it's 20 minutes past 11 a.m. Thank you so much for those that have been with us. Rajan, Abdul Rahim, and all of you that were in, like, quote unquote, we call it Kamoli. Thank you so much. Those that have been with us for all this time, 52 minutes into the broadcast. Thank you for always taking the time. Do not forget to continue to, watch our content, like, comment, share, subscribe. If you're always still here, and then maybe I want to bring you to interest you with an offer for those of you that are interested in this sphere. Those that want to acquire digital skills like coding, web design, cybersecurity. I mean, these are services on a very high demand as far as the global market is concerned. There is a big offer from Able State. That's AbleState.Africa. They do have a very exciting offer for you. You'll get a 5% discount if you do, enroll now for some of their services, for some of their digital skills. So that offer is on. Please leverage on that and learn coding, learn software development, learn web design, learn cybersecurity. Cybersecurity, one of the most on-demand services on the global scene. So they are based in Kampala. That's Kampala, Uganda, and offer both in-person and online digital skills, training sessions, career guidance, and help their members to find jobs in the dynamic digital space. So I'll leave the link to them down in the description for those of you that will watch this video much later, and for those of you that do want to return and check them out, please endeavor to do so. Otherwise, stay blessed and have yourselves a wonderful rest of the day. Bye-bye, and I'll see you next time.